The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Faster my good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Max Radio. Today, talking about plastic in our seas, plastic in the ocean, wind turbines. Basically, what we've got ourselves into, how we can get out of it, and is there any way the Isle of Man can play a part in it? Obviously, tomorrow is going to be an open line, so we'll talk about the health situation with Mr. Hooper and Mr. Cannon. That's going to be tomorrow on the open line, but today, plastic, and there's one man who'll start with that, and that's Bill Dale, who started Beach Buddies. How long ago, Bill?
2006, Andy. January the 6th, 2006. So in a year and a bit, we'll be 20 years.
Crikey.
Yes,
and
crikey.
If you'd known then what you know now, would you have done the same?
Oh, absolutely. It's been the most rewarding and the most, I don't mean financially rewarding, I mean personally rewarding and also productive thing that we've done, and it's changed a generation in the Isle of Man. And we were speaking in a school this morning, and it's wonderful that the children are growing up in an environment where the beaches are actually clean, and it seems to be we're the only place in the world almost that's doing that. So yeah, it's been a great thing to do. I've met some great people along the way. When
we take Mannin Line around the schools and the subject of Beach Buddies comes up, am I right in thinking every young person gets it?
Without question. Let's be honest, maybe there's 1 in 100 that doesn't. And I work on that figure quite a lot. So that means there's 99 good guys and 1 who's not. Yeah. And they're the one person that throws rubbish out of car windows and in the street. So there's 99 of us picking up. Having said that, a population of 85,000, then there's 850 people who are out there chucking stuff in the street. So that's quite a lot. And of course, that doesn't count for the millions of people who are just don't care. You know, I mean, if you wander around England, which I do on a regular basis, the towns, the cities like Liverpool, Manchester, London, I mean, it's just, people are almost oblivious to it. It's an appalling mess everywhere. It's slowly changing because generations are growing up. They've inherited a really bad situation, and education that we do, for which we've won awards, is it seems to be working. So I think that's the answer.
Okay, alongside Bill is Jeroen Wats, who's a Dutchman, lives in Castletown, and for years was an ocean yacht racer. You won races, didn't you, Jeroen? You won.
Yeah, thank God I did.
You were racing, I think, Africa to South America, here, there,
yes,
and
exactly.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, you must have seen plastic in the oceans.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Andy. The point when you really see plastics in the oceans, for example, when you do a race from Cape Town to Rio de Janeiro, it's almost bizarre, because it's the first time I raced and won the race in 21 days. 4 days before you reach the finish line in Rio de Janeiro, you see already, let's say, parts of McDonald's, Coca-Cola, trash in the sea. 4 days.
So 4 days off.
Four days offshore.
Off of Buenos Aires. You were seeing rubbish in the ocean. Yeah.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Okay. And did it change much over there? How long were you racing for?
That time I did it in 21 days. The second time I did it in 16.
But your career, when did you start racing?
Oh God, when I was 5 years old, I think. Okay. So yeah.
I mean, has the sea got more polluted in terms of plastic and rubbish over that time?
Absolutely, no doubt.
So, in terms of that plastic, I mean, what do people say in the maritime industry and in the sailing community? Does it bother them? Do they care about it? Well, what's the feeling?
Yeah, that's a very good question again. I think when in my opinion, you have 3 steps. You have an awareness, and you have, let's say, a concern and action. But when awareness starts, people are aware of it, people get concerned about it, but what you need to transform these 3 steps into action. So when you have a concern, for example, look at my neighbor here. I really love the work Bill is doing. But when you have, for example, people say, well, I'm concerned, but who cares? Bill cleans it up anyway. You need to get a sort of imprint in a behavior where concern turns into action. And when that last step is not taken, then we are a generation lost, to be honest.
So, I mean, when you were in places in South America or in Africa as well, what do the indigenous populations, what do the people there make of it? The people who live in the coastal cities and towns, does it seem to bother them?
Not really, no. They have other problems than we.
Now, you're from whereabouts in Holland?
Close to Rotterdam. I'm born on an island in Dordrecht.
Okay. Yeah. So what's the situation like in Holland? What does the Dutch population think of marine plastic and rubbish on the beaches?
I have to say, all the countries, let's say not only the Netherlands, because that sounds a little bit like everything in the Netherlands is so brilliant. It's not. But what I can see is that especially, let's say, Scandinavian countries, Northern European countries are leading the way to cleaning up and sustainability, circularity, making changes, and so on. That's what you see more in the Northern European countries, Scandinavian countries, like the Netherlands as well. They're very progressive in cleaning up things, and especially, for example, if you take the Netherlands, is 18 million people on a very small surface. So, for example, if you take the population of the Netherlands and put them per square kilometer, well, I'm sorry, I'm a metric guy, then you have about 480,000 people on the Isle of Man. So you need to take care of each other, like we do here on the island with 85,000 people. But when you put 480,000 people, it becomes a very dense, pollutive thing. So it's unavoidable that you have to clean up your mess.
Okay, is it a cultural thing in the Netherlands, or has it been imposed by government? Did the people suggest it and do it, or did the government decide?
Government plays a role in it. But it becomes as well to the same steps what I just said as well: awareness, concern, and action.
Okay, Bill, is this chiming with you at all?
I mean, it resonates really well. You know, it's interesting that when you look around the world, that some countries just don't seem to care. My experience is the Scandinavian countries are pretty good. We were in Norway in January, and there's definitely a consciousness about that. But then you go to the United States, which professes itself to be the sort of like the green capital of the world, you know, with more green energy and electric cars. You drive down a road in USA, and the side of the road is absolutely appalling. And that applies not just there. The one thing I keep saying when I give talks in schools, when you get off the boat at Heysham and then you drive your car up to Morecambe, there's a dual carriageway, and I've normally got a dog on board, so you stop to let the dog out just for a few minutes to have a little walk. And at the side of that dual carriageway, the plastic and the junk is a foot deep. And that's for about 3 miles before you get to Lancaster. Now, that's just one example of one road in Britain, and we consider ourselves in the north of England to be a little bit better than most places. The example that human beings are setting, it's beyond understanding, really. And I'm absolutely convinced, and I know Jeroen believes in this, is the education side of this is really important, and that's why we spend so much time in schools. Because if the adults are not going to bother and you have to almost abandon them, let them get on with it, the children are going to be the people who make decisions in a few years' time. They're going to be maybe a head of a department in any sort of a company. They'll remember, particularly if you come from the Isle of Man, that you can have clean beaches and you can have an environment where people recycle. We're very fortunate to have the energy from waste plant. I remember when the government bought that all those years ago, there was massive controversy because there was a lot of money. And people think, what are we doing buying a giant incinerator? But look at what it's done. We don't have any landfill anymore. Very little from the bottom ash from the incinerator. So, we have made some good decisions in the past, and government has been pretty supportive over the time. But without question, unless you educate people from a young age, they're not going to follow it through. So adults are more inclined or less inclined to do something about it. Children really do see the problem, and as I've said, in schools we get a fantastic feedback. It's been really good. Okay,
when we were looking at the research for this program, I checked the United Nations, and they reckon that if the figure is 1.3% of plastic ends up in the ocean, and this is up to 2013. So if 1.3% of global plastics produced from 1950 to 2013 enter the ocean, there's 86 million tons of marine debris, plastic in the oceans.
Yeah.
That's only up to 2013.
Yeah.
It seems unsurmountable because, and the biggest polluters, it has to be said, are in the Far East: China, Indonesia, the Philippines, Vietnam,
Yes.
Sri Lanka, Thailand, Egypt, Malaysia, Nigeria, and Bangladesh. All of those, apart from Egypt and Nigeria, are in the Far East. So it seems, and this is relatively recent. So that plastic, and remember, when we were kids, everything was in paper bags and glass bottles and jars.
Well, there's an interesting. I was just going to mention it. I remember when my dad and mum ran the post office in St John's, and they used to sell bottles of fizzy drinks, but the bottle had a deposit on it. So you brought the bottle back and you got your money back on it. I'm amazed that there's not a proper deposit return system. It does exist to some extent, I think, in Holland. I think you can put your empty plastic bottle back into a machine, and then you either get a voucher or cash comes out of the machine to spend in the supermarket or whatever. Yeah. I mean, why on earth the world doesn't do that? I mean, that's not rocket science. It's a fairly simple
Well, I went
system.
to the sea terminal yesterday. There is a machine there that's supposed to take plastic bottles, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work. How does it work in the Netherlands with recycling plastic bottles, Jeroen?
Well, that's actually since the start. So when I was young, exactly to the point of bill, is that you paid, let's say, 25p on a bottle when you bring it back, and you get. Well, I haven't been living in the Netherlands for 20 years, so it's for me very difficult to live about everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you get your money back. You know, it's very, very easy to put your bottles back in a machine, or glass bottles or PET bottles, and name it. And you get a voucher with a barcode, and you scan it, and you get that will be taken off of your bill at the supermarket. Yeah. But to the point, for example, just want to hook up on the statement what you said, Andy, about let's say the plastic produced in the Far East. Yeah. Who is actually responsible?
That's the point.
Because I think it's very easy when carbon emissions and plastic, and it's all coming from the Far East, and it's all pointing fingers. But the moment we keep on buying plastics from the Far East, we are responsible. We are responsible for the carbon footprint left behind there, because we are supporting an economy without getting, let's say, to a point where we say, no, we need something greener, we need something this. Because then you stop an economy, and then you start innovation to get more green and more sustainable recyclable materials. But the moment we keep on buying, you cannot put the blame on the Far East.
Okay, we've got a full switchboard, so let's get to the lines. Julian's with us now. Julian, hi, you're with Jeroen and Bill Dale.
Hi, Andy, and hello to Bill and Jeroen.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Jeroen. I've got a question for Jeroen on micro and nanoplastics. In 2014, scientists conducted some tests in Washington State in America on how far sea spray molecules traveled inland, and they found that the sea spray molecules were very similar size and weight to the wind turbine blade generated micro and nanoplastic particles, according to University of Strathclyde. And they were found to travel up to 80 kilometers inland, or 50 miles. So sea spray and these shedded particles from turbine blades, very similar size and weight. I'd like to know your opinion, Jeroen. How far do you think the proposed wind turbine microplastics could travel on the island, and the implications for the Caervai Erie Stain onshore, and indeed the 100 turbines proposed 6 miles offshore from Ramsey?
That's. I'm very happy that you asked that question, Julian, because and your data is actually correct. I've been studying this subject as well very deeply. When you take, let's say, the onshore wind farm proposal, that will shred around 300 kilos a year of nanoplastics, which will be spread over our seabeds, lands, and reservoirs. Bear in mind, depending on the resin types, because normally wind turbines are made from, let's say, from epoxy resins or vinyl ester resins, which contain a content of bisphenol A, which is called BPA. And bear in mind that half a kilogram, so let's say a pint of beer, can contaminate the entire Sulby reservoir. That's something which is deeply concerning.
Yeah, I noticed the BPA that you're talking about makes up about 15% of the cast weight of a wind turbine blade. So if you've got 30-ton wind turbine blade and there's 3 of them per turbine. That's quite a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, that's not entirely true. I have to correct you there. You got a valid point, by the way, but it's mainly the nanoplastics shredding are caused on the leading edge part of a wind turbine blade. And the leading, so that's mainly caused by rain, hail, sand, can be even ultraviolet light, so UV light will have an effect on that. And that part, let's say of a 60-meter blade, it's about 700 kilograms of leading edge, which is eroding. So not the entire blade erodes.
Yeah, but that's still, what is that? That's getting on more 3/4 of a ton.
Exactly that. Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's
and I understand that the BPA, you can ingest that orally through the food chain. So there's the question mark, say, Erie Stain. There's a lot of cattle around there. You can inhale it, and you can also get it through the skin as well. And it seems that quite a few of these cancers that are going around, they've noticed that particularly things like endometrial cancers, testicular cancers, thyroid, colorectal, there's quite a high percentage of BPA measured in the blood. And they're wondering if it's to do with the fact that BPA interferes with estrogen. The body sees it as very similar to estrogen, and it's able to sort of lock into your cells. I just wonder what you think about the potential problem of having 3/4 of a ton of BPA potentially in the food chain, inhaling it, and also on your skin.
Well, I'm not a medical doctor, so I cannot make a statement on that one. But it is concerning, for all the reasons you say. For example, when I take a step back to February this year, there was a ban, or there is a ban in the European Union on every plastics containing BPA which is directly in contact with food. So the whole discussion is actually starting in Europe right now, and it's something I flagged up before here on the Isle of Man in the news and everything, because nobody actually really knows how much BPA is released and how much effect it will have on your health. And for me, the scary thing is things you don't know. We don't want to come in 20 years like asbestos, like that it has a massive health issue for the generation to come in 10, 15, 20 years.
Okay.
So,
all right. Julian, we appreciate it. Thanks for calling today.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Good to hear from you. Just run that by us again, would you? BPA, what is it?
BPA is bisphenol A, which is a content in a lot of resins, mainly in vinyl ester and epoxy resins, which is a part of a composite material. Right. So, for example, boats, wind turbines, and name it. Which just it's a content. It's not a lot of it, but it's considerate, which just extends the lifespan
right.
of the end product.
Okay, so it extends, it binds it together, or what does it do?
Exactly. It slows the aging process down.
Okay, all right. Howard's on now. Hi, Howard. You're live with Jeroen and Bill Dale.
Good afternoon, Andy. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Bill and Jeroen.
Good afternoon.
It's a question for Bill. This is more of a localised thing. All this quite a few years now, while the summer holidays are on, etc., holidays from school, the area where I live in has Annika School in it, and we live fairly close to it. But it's relatively clean during the holidays. But once the schools go back, of course, the mums and dads are all coming up to pick their children up. And we can't blame the people who manufacture these items, it's the people who buy them. We find then there's a considerable amount of rubbish builds up after the schools are let out for the afternoon once it's finished. Does Bill find this when he's travelling around the island, that you have a similar problem on a lot of schools around the island? And if that's the case, it's parental control, and they're bringing up a young generation that are not going to have much care for where the rubbish goes.
Yeah, well, it's a good point, and I think that would have applied and does apply to some extent when the schools, they go on a beach and have a barbecue at the end of the school year, in particular in July. And of course, this sort of thing also happens TT Grand Prix. What I would say is that it's nothing like the problem that it used to be, because we spend so much time in the schools talking to the teachers and the students about the impact of plastics in particular on the environment. So it's nothing like it used to be. It is still a problem. I think one of the big problems here is that there is no accountability. There has been fly tipping all over the place for a very long time, of all sorts. Television's not far from here on the Marine Drive, and we had a recent incident where somebody's dumped a whole pile of cat litter on a beach. People are still doing that sort of thing, but when nobody is made accountable, then people are getting away with it. Consequently, it's going to continue to happen. And I'm a great believer that once a few penalties are imposed and people are fined a few £100, then maybe that will make a difference if it hits their pocket.
Yeah, as I say, we've noticed plastic bottles, and as I say, you can't blame the manufacturers here. McDonald's foods, well, we're a considerable distance away from McDonald's, so these are obviously brought up by the parents ready to pick their children up, Happy Meals and things like that. And of course the debris then is just thrown out of the car, because at that point it's finished and money becomes litter. So I think education, as you've been doing, and I hope you continue doing, can bring the parents into line, who then can teach the children the rights and wrongs of littering the countryside, etc.
Okay, all right, appreciate it.
Just while you're thinking there, when Bill was saying about the bottles, the glass bottles, well, it's no longer used, but I can remember, and Bill probably will, Downwards. And they had a huge machine in there where all the bottles came back to that place where they manufacture the lemonades and minerals. And they had a huge machine there. The girls used to feed the bottles in, and then the tops were taken off. And I think, I'm going to stand corrected on this, Taffy Davies from Davies Charlton used to come over and take them all over to his place, smelt them down, and use the aluminium that was in the caps. And then the bottles were refilled and went back out for distribution.
Okay, all right, Howard, thanks for that. Good to hear from you.
Okay, take care.
Okay, just getting back to this question of litter, Bill, and we've talked about it many times before. In fact, we'll keep on talking about it until everybody knows it.
Yeah.
How do you stop people littering? How do you stop people? Antisocial behaviour, really, isn't it?
It is antisocial, and as I just mentioned there to Howard, that why is nobody made accountable? There's an incident that I remember a couple of years ago where somebody had been fly tipping builder's rubbish in a plantation. Now, I'm not going to say where because it'll identify the local authority, but we were called up there to shift it. And lo and behold, the idiot who dropped it off had left his name and address on the plastic, on the bag of plasterboard. Mm-hmm. So I thought, here we go. This is a fantastic opportunity. Poor guy, make an example of him. So I took a photograph of it and sent it to the local commissioners. And I waited about 4 weeks maybe, and I thought, there's nothing happening here. What's going on? And I phoned up, and they said, oh yeah, we had a word with the guy, and we told him off and not to do it again. Now, as far as I'm concerned, there's a missed opportunity to make an example. The poor guy would have faced a fairly heavy fine, because you can be fined a lot of money for this. But it's a rare occasion when you can find a name on the rubbish itself, because that doesn't happen on the beach, of course. So accountability has to start within your own head, really, and that's why we spend so much time in the schools. And what I love about the schools is that the children go home and educate the parents. It's children who want to come along and make a difference. I mean, obviously we get lots of adults as well, but we've got probably, I would say, 70% of our volunteers are young people, and that gives me great hope for the future. And it has made a difference in the Isle of Man, without question. The fact that we won this award in Norway for what we've achieved by working with young people is a feather in the cap of the Manx people, and we are, I know it's hard to believe sometimes, but we are head and shoulders above pretty much everywhere else in Britain, if not the world.
Okay. Bill, the naysayers will say, actually, it doesn't do any good. While ever there are tons and tons, and we've seen photos of the Ganges and other rivers where plastic flows down. You yourself have mentioned before that we get Irish plastic. We get stuff from the streets of Dublin, washed down the Liffey, landing on our beach.
We do.
So we can do exactly what and this happens all around the world. That vortex of plastic in the Pacific that ends up on the beaches of Hawaii every day. It's like the fourth rail bridge. It never finishes. How can we influence something like this when far more is dumped in other places?
That's a hell of a question.
Which is why I asked you.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I know this sounds ridiculous, but why not set an example to other countries? Now, I mean, if you think about what we've tried to do in the last maybe 7, 8, 10 years is to spread the word around the Irish Sea. And we've spent some time in Scotland, and we've gone to schools in like Skye and North Uist and Shetland, and the children get the message straight away. Lake District, for instance, everybody has to understand that this starts anywhere. You can be on the top of Ben Nevis, and the plastic will end up going into a stream and a river out to sea and on the beach. So it doesn't matter where you live. If you think I live in Birmingham, who cares? Absolutely wrong. Everybody can do something about this. So in the Isle of Man, the education program we run is all about responsibility and taking action and doing something about it. And as I say, the best bit is when I see children on a Sunday morning who come along to our volunteer session. I'll recognise them from a session that I've run, and they brought mum and dad. So on that basis, that works, and we are slowly making a difference certainly around the Irish Sea and Scotland, and hopefully if we could get an education program in all the schools in Britain, for instance. I mean, you think about the money that's wasted by governments. If you were to spend just a handful of millions of pounds on giving the schools litter pickers just to get them active, you'd be amazed. Look, it's happened here. We give litter pickers to every school. We have 50 plus bins around, so there's no excuse if you pick the rubbish up, you've got somewhere to put it. So on that basis, simplify the whole thing. It's not too complicated, and things will happen. And we've proved it's happened here, so I can't see any reason why it shouldn't happen anywhere else.
Okay, Eddie. Hello, Eddie. You're live with our guest today.
How you doing, Andy, and your guests? I'm just wondering if a suggestion may be that governments, especially with the theme from nearly all the governments being green, why on earth we can't go back in time a little bit and use all glass and ban plastic bottles altogether. The elements that we use are all clean, plentiful. We wouldn't have, the amount of oil that you use for making plastics and so forth would be done away with. The bottles themselves are totally recyclable, no matter what colour. And the other thing is there was a method that they used to use in the old days, which was a refund on the bottle when you take them back. Yeah. So they're not just thrown away.
Okay.
What does the panel think?
Okay, what would you think? I mean, do you think we can ever go back to glass bottles, Bill, Jeroen? I'm not against glass bottles. I mean, as long as there is a sufficient and an efficient way of recycling them. I'm not 100% sure about how that happens, but certainly, as I mentioned before, a deposit return, even on a plastic bottle, I'm
is
trying
a step
to remember,
forward.
when did plastic bottles arrive? Was it the 1980s? 80s, something
Probably.
like that, wasn't it?
Probably.
Late
around
90s,
then.
I think.
Yeah, they arrived, and suddenly I remember lots of the big dairies in England suddenly went from glass bottles, and what they said at the time was for every pint of milk in a glass bottle there were 7 in circulation. So you needed 7 glass bottles for every one that was being used, and I think at the time plastic was just a lot cheaper than that. But obviously we found out there is a hidden cost to plastic at the end.
Well, Jeroen and I were having a conversation before we came in the studio here about exactly that subject, and the reality is that the plastic bottles are making huge amounts of money for some companies.
Yeah.
So consequently, why would they even bother thinking about changing that? Because it's too easy to make the money.
Well, and at the end, money is at the end of it. But when governments are quite happy now to, they banned smoking. They banned all sorts of things now. They're now looking at banning the internal combustion engine. So plastic bottles should be a piece of cake for them if they really wanted to.
But it's not as if this subject of polluting the ocean with plastics is like something that's just popped popped up this last year or so. I mean, this has been around for quite a long time. Yeah. And with the way that the world works now, you can just spend 20 minutes on your computer and just check what's happening anywhere in the world. And this is a huge, huge problem. And people just seem to be almost turning a blind eye to it as if, well, it's a bit too big a problem. But we have just, I mean, if you stop it at source, that's the answer. There's this guy, I think he's a Dutch guy, who cleans up the ocean and the big ocean cleanup, I think. Yeah. But all he's doing, I mean, it's very worthwhile, and he's made himself very wealthy out of it as well. He picks up plastic and then brings it ashore, and I don't know what he does. It's recycled, I think. But he's doing nothing about stopping it getting there in the first place.
Oh, he drives a boat around and scoops it up.
He scoops it up, but surely the answer is to stop it getting into the ocean in the first place. Obviously, there is a clean-up job to be done, but absolutely, I'm 100% on education and stopping it in the future. Take responsibility.
All right, Eddie, thanks for that.
Okay.
Good to hear from you. Sorry, Jeroen, again, I'm writing everything down, Jeroen. What were the 3 stages again that you were talking about?
Oh, my God.
Awareness?
Awareness, concern and action.
Awareness, concern and action. Yeah. This is a very unique opportunity. We've got Bill Dale from Beach Buddies, Jeroen Wats, who knows a thing or two about BPAs and everything, and obviously raced yachts that were made of glass fibre once upon a time. But there's a brand new material apparently that's now around that may solve all sorts of problems. So we'll come to that in just a few moments' time, talking about plastic and the ocean and what we can do about it. Well, you say, what can we do about it? Well, we invented, I mean, the Isle of Man will take credit, we invented Beach Buddies. You know, Beach Buddies now spreads out right across the world. An idea that just started because somebody thought the beach looked untidy and they'd pick rubbish up. Now, if you've got any thoughts, got lots of messages to get to. And if you want to call 66 13 68, we're on till 1 today. After Mannin Line today, it's the 60th anniversary, so it's a retro Kelly's Eye with Peter Kelly and David Callister looking at a mess at Mona's Terrace after Mannin Line today.
The Isle of Man has one of the best available wind resources in Europe. Manx Utilities wants to hear from you about the proposed Caervai onshore wind farm project, an exciting new initiative designed to harness our natural resources, which could generate more than a quarter of the island's electricity needs. Please join us at one of our 8 public consultations running this October. It's your chance to engage, ask questions, experience the VR simulation and meet our team. For details, visit manxutilities.im.
Back pain, neck pain, headaches, joint pain. At Align for Life Spine and Posture Clinic, we've been helping Manx residents for 15 years with our holistic, evidence-based care and therapies. Plus, we're now open Saturdays to make it even easier to see us. Visit our brand new website at alignforlife.com or find us on Facebook for opening hours and more information. Align for Life, 15 years serving the community of the Isle of Man.
Construction waste today.
Tells recycle for another day.
A builder skip or two.
Tells Skips will bring to you.
At Tells Skip Hire and Waste Disposal in Snugborough, you only pay for the waste you bring. For waste disposal and skips, give us a call on 677 137. That's 677 137. Visit Tells today or find Tells Limited on Facebook.
Call Tells Skips today.
677 137.
Whatever your business, whatever its size, you can always rely on the island's leading fuel and oil supplier to keep you moving. Ellen Vannin Fuels, powering the island and powering industry. Call us on 844 000.
A Gilg, the Manx Gaelic, Jinyanamera, the mother tongue of Ellen Vannin, the Isle of Man. You can catch up with more of Manx Radio's Manx language programmes in the weekly podcast Aber Rish. Say that again. Shene, that's the one.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Jeroen Wats is here, former ocean yacht racer, now scientist and industrialist and walker of beaches. And Bill Dale, cleaner of beaches, is here. And Mark's on the line. Hi, Mark.
Yeah, hi, Andy. I've just got a question for Jeroen, but 3 questions. They're very short, and I do apologise. One is, what was the Isle of Man government's response to his approach with regards to the potential dangers of, let's call it, plastic shredding off the turbines? 2, his proposal, are they able to be manufactured? So the blades that he's proposing, are they manufactured, and where are they being manufactured? And the third question is, one of my big concerns is the supply chain. And with all the turbines being manufactured in China, I presume, most of them are, that gives an awful lot of control in China. And just say, for example, given the state of the world, and this has not been aimed to China, but I live there, as you know, Andy, if, say, for example, the turbine lifespan is, say, 10 to 15 years, I think it varies, I don't know, maybe Jeroen can talk about that. But the supply chain is in China, and if there's a political fallout and the blades need replacing on the tens of thousands of turbines that are going to be in the UK territorial waters, I think that's a real danger to the, say, UK and Isle of Man economy. Sorry, 3 questions, Joe. I'm sorry about that.
Okay. Jeroen?
Okay, question number 1. Can you please repeat it? Because I'm...
sorry, question number 1 was what was the Isle of Man government's response?
Yes, sorry for that.
Approach?
Yes. I've been contacting the Isle of Man government as well, Manx Utilities, and to be fair honest, I didn't get any further. Wow. No reply, okay. no interaction.
Okay,
nothing.
Let's put this in context. Obviously, you're concerned about the stripping of microplastics and nanoplastics from the leading edge of wind turbines.
Yes.
And, I mean, you say that is a reality and that the BPA will cause pollution. Now, I understand your company has patented a material that you say could replace on the leading edge.
Yes, correct. Well, there's few aspects on it. First of all, glass fibers as such are... We're getting now to a stage where it's getting better and better, which we all want in the world, but still glass fiber is a very pollutive content. Yeah. So boats are made from that. And
well, this was all led by the fact that you used to race boats
across exactly.
Across
well,
the ocean.
I actually, not only that, because after my racing career, I started to develop and build racing yachts. So I used to work with composite materials from glass fiber to carbon fiber for about 17 years of my career. And then the whole problem started in my head, because the more you read about it, let's say 680,000 tons of glass fiber is dumped in landfill just in Europe per year. That's just shocking. Secondly is health and safety. We talk about styrene, we talk about boric acid and BPA and so on, which people are exposed to every day in a shipyard which I was running. So then the awareness, concern and action came into my brain, where I thought, okay, I'm getting aware of it, I'm getting concerned, I cannot turn a blind eye right now. So I stopped that part of my life, which actually really loved it, because it's living a boy's dream, building racing yachts, but start to innovate an answer to this global issue. And that's been a very long journey. I think we did it pretty quick, but still it's 3 years, very intense work on a material which is made from natural fibers, which is a resin which is free from BPA, free from cobalt salt, and so on and so on, which can repeatedly be recycled. So you keep your materials in the economy and out of landfill. So that's the whole story about it.
And you built boats of this,
We built boats out of it. We did quite a lot of things. We do now projects for high-speed trains. We talk with Ørsted right now about the leading edge protection, because one of the elements, and that's where I wanted to go to, is that in the extent of testing what we did, is that the material proved to be, first of all, affordable, secondly, has an unseen impact resistance. That's never seen before. So
it stops bullets, doesn't it?
It stops bullets, yeah. We did tests in the United States on a 12 mil thick plate. I'm not an expert on bullets, I live on the Isle of Man, so everybody hugs each other here. So, but a bullet, a 7.65 NATO round with a speed of 3,000 feet per second, multiple shots on target, and no penetration on a 12 mil thick plate.
And you think that this material will be perfect for the leading edge of wind turbines?
Yes, and I have a lot of scientific proofs of the things we did. So we, apart from the multi-million investment we did in this operation to create, let's say, a patent and so on. So the first 3 years we did research and development. We did all our homework, so all laboratory testing is externally done. We did, for example, I got here something here on the floor, which is pretty cool. We made an Isle of Man TT helmet with one of the leading helmet manufacturers in the world.
Put that in front of the camera. The camera there. There we are.
So this is a helmet which is fully recyclable, repeatedly recyclable.
And it's made of this. What's the material called?
Danu. And Danu is the Celtic mother of earth.
D-A-N-U, Danu.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you made the motorcycle helmet and...
Oh, we do a lot of things like boats. We do high-speed train projects. We do it in a lot of extent of.
What have Ørsted said?
Ørsted's really interested in part, especially in the leading edge protection. So there's a few elements, and I want to get to the answer as well from number 2.
Okay.
So to make that a step towards number 2. So first of all, Ørsted is really interested in this for the leading edge erosion, because leading edge erosion, apart from the nanoplastic shredding, is a very big headbreaker on terms of maintenance for the wind industry. It costs millions and millions of pounds because you need to repair and maintain them properly. That I know for a fact that this helmet, for example, test is past all the Federation International Motorsport standards and all the EN and so on DOT regulations. So I got a scientific proof. So for now, the leading edge protection, it's likely, very likely, that Danu is an answer to leading edge protection. First of all, it withstands impact, so rain, hail, and so on would be considerably better. It is free of BPA, the fibers are natural, and at the end of life you recycle it, you make something new out of it. So that's something I flagged up. I said, I want to do an extent of testing on this subject, and why don't we make the leading edge parts here on the Isle of Man? Or wind turbine blades on the Isle of Man, because that's something we can do. I have several discussions with the Department for Enterprise, and I have to say they are very supportive in their way, like Kiri Goldman and Rachel Hopkinsons. Where we, in a recent discussion I had with Rachel, was last Friday, I said, well, listen, the island can produce here when it's high quality and low volumes, so high value projects. So when it comes to the leading edge protection part, you can put them as a sleeve. That's something you can make on the Isle of Man. That fits our biosphere, that creates jobs. That's something we just can't do. We are not depending on other countries. We can do it here.
Okay. And what was the question about China, Mark?
Well, he's actually, Jeroen, and this is not a planted question, by the way. I've never met Jeroen, but that just fits into the discussion, because my concern is the supply chain. So the Labour government's going to build, 12,000 new turbines or something in the next 5 or 6 years. And you think about little old Isle of Man wanting 3. We're going to be bottom of the food chain. And if politically, and people will say it's sort of a ridiculous concept, but politically, if there's a fallout with China, which there could be, and the supply chain gets broken, and we have to get a turbine from China because it's broken down or something's happened, that could enable us to actually produce energy. And I think Jeroen's idea about producing something high quality, local on Isle of Man is absolutely brilliant. I didn't know he was going to sort of say that, but you've answered my question. I think that's something USP, and it doesn't surprise me that the Department of Enterprise is very for it. They're for most things, but then it gets caught up in bureaucracy, and we have to go with a blueprint that exists. And it's shameful that the government hasn't sort of taken this more seriously, Jeroen. And I commend you, and I hope you keep at it, because I know it's very difficult to sort of get through these things, and often you're banging your head against a brick wall. But please keep at it, because I think it's a really unique opportunity for the Isle of Man. Okay, all right, Mark, I appreciate that. Thanks for that. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about wind turbine. I want to talk about wind turbine blades, and you said they're stored in landfill. Do they rot away? What happens to a wind turbine blade?
Well, that's a good one, because they will rot away initially, but from now until, let's say, the end 2050, it's 43 million tons of wind turbine blades end in landfill. They contain BPA, they contain boric acid, and they contain cobalt salt and so on, styrene and so on. Where
are they?
Oh, they're everywhere. Literally, if you see, for example, the United States, they bury them you just can't believe. And the United States is a very small player in the wind sector. Yeah. Europe is leading the game, and we're just building it up and building it up and building it up. So we're coming now to a stage where, for example, wind turbine blades can be recycled. So these are steps which are going in the right direction. The only thing is, what is always a concern, is that the moment, and it's the same for electric cars and it's the same for a lot of things, you make steps forward, but when you keep on promoting half-baked solutions, then innovation stops. It's simple as that. So comfort is the biggest enemy of progress. And I think when we just should embrace smarter innovations, green technology, which is actually here in front of my head, in front of my eyes here, which is proved to be more affordable. Yeah. For example, we did now shower trays here on the Isle of Man with DLP Limited. So they make their shower trays for the medical purposes here on the Isle of Man in Snugborough. And they asked me, shall we make a shower tray? And why not? It's an amazing opportunity. It's a commodity. It's a very price-sensitive subject, where we proved to save 36% of weight, use considerably less fibers. The fibers have a 50% lower carbon emission in their production, and you can recycle it forever. So from the shower tray, you can make a helmet even.
And that's on the Isle of Man.
And that's something we do on the Isle of Man. Yeah.
Okay, so this, recent, for many people, well, this will be a revolutionary concept. So this material is natural, endlessly recyclable.
Yes, correct.
And stops bullets, bluntly. And you can make shower trays. You can make anything out of it.
Yes, and from the shower tray, you can make a helmet out of it.
Okay. What's next, Jeroen?
Next, that's a good question. I'm always curious, I'm always want to do something more and more. But on this mission, I'm not ready yet. There's so much industries to. Well, the point is, it almost sounds like your own child is always the best and the most beautiful and so on, which is in this case simply as it is, because we have something brilliant and very groundbreaking, and I'm still not ready in going so far into several parts of industries. And even, we have a WhatsApp group with my partners, and somebody sees, let's say, when he's boarding on a flight, say, this made a fiberglass, makes a picture out of it, and then you jump on it. Okay. It's a very interesting journey so far.
From the sublime to the core blimey, Bill, what's happened to the cat litter? Is it still there?
Well, I was there 2 days ago and it was still there.
Now, somebody has been dumping cat litter, big bags of cat litter, in Beach Buddies bins. It's not on. Don't do it and take it away. It's at Smale, isn't it?
It is in Smale. It's apart from the point of air, it's the most remote bin in the Isle of Man. And obviously what I don't understand is why did they not just put it in their own bin or take it to the amenity site?
Okay. What's the website for Beach Buddies, Bill?
beachbuddies.org.im.
Okay. Jeroen, is there a website for your company we can look at? Anybody can look at?
exo-tech.com.
Say that again. exo-tech.com.
Correct. Yeah.
We'll do that. It's absolutely fascinating to hear this today. Thanks for being with us, Bill. Good to talk to you.
When's the
Beach Buddies on Sunday? Yeah. Whereabouts are you?
We haven't chosen yet, but it'll be somewhere south.
Okay. All right. Jeroen, thanks for that. Everybody's trying to get their head around what you've been talking about, and I now know about BPA. And what was it again?
Awareness, concern, and action.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being with us today. You've been hearing Jeroen Wats and Bill Dale talking about, you've heard what we've been talking about. It spans the world. It starts on the Isle of Man, and we could be on the cusp of something special. Tomorrow we got an open line on Manx Radio. Thanks to Howie Kane on the phones today. And enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
WINT.
60 years serving you as the nation's station. This is Manx Radio.
Kelly's Eye, brought to you by Ellis Brown Architects.
Today, David, I have to say, I'm looking at a mess. But we're on this slip road that goes from Harris Terrace down to meet Finch Road, and we're actually at the end of Mona Terrace, which is that terrace of individual houses facing the Chester Street car park, or the upper decks.
It's not so long since we were here watching the start really of a demolition, I suppose.
That's right. They were about to take down two buildings, numbers 1 and 2, and you probably recall from this position there was a door on the side which was the entrance to number 1, and it had a very fine fluted portico arrangement.
Number 2 had its own front door and then flight of steps down going to tall gate pillars onto Finch Road. They've been replaced by a single building, which I think is 8 apartments in total. And so we're in the side road looking at now the entrance, and you'll see the entrance now is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps up. Instead of that fine fluted portico arrangement, you've got sort of 2 pieces of wood nailed on the wall and a bit of fiberglass over the top. And to level it up, there's a couple of brick pillars underneath which just lack proportion and everything. When you look on the front, now you've got this monolithic front running through. No doors, no steps.
No gardens. Well,
garden.
What used to be the gardens, there's a bit of grass there and a few bits of planting, but they're largely car parks.
Largely car park in front of the building. So, of course, not only do you go into one of these flats and look at cars, but those in the rest of the terrace then haven't got what they had before, which was a series of gardens. They've got cars stuck up at a high level because they've filled it up. But even on the Finch Road side, where there was the tall gates, instead of leaving the steps there so these people could go down and then down Well Road Hill, they bricked it up, but not neatly. It's just bricked up and rendered to an arbitrary level instead of working something within the height of the pillars. So when I said a mess, I mean a mess.
Well, it's quite clear once you get up those narrow steps that you're going into Harris View. That's well marked on the entrance there. But the word that springs to mind is minimalist, isn't it?
Yes.
Many of the most iconic buildings around the island have been designed by Ellis Brown Architects. Keep up with Ellis Brown today on Facebook or via ellisbrown.in.
Part of island life for 60 years. This is your Manx Radio.